Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster Tarpley here in Washington, D.C., calling your attention to my website, tarpley.net. Tarpley.net upgrade is now imminent, I think this coming week, but I'm not sure. Just remember, von Clausewitz always says friction always occurs whenever you try to do anything, so it always takes a little bit longer. The main point, though, is take a look at tarpley.net now and get it bookmarked. There you'll also find ways to buy my books. Obama, the Postmodern Coup, The Making of a Manchurian Candidate, available also in Japanese and German. Barack H. Obama, The Unauthorized Biography, and important now, indispensable for the World Economic Depression, Surviving the Cataclysm, Your Guide to the Worst Financial Crisis in Human History. That's the expanded and updated second edition of a prophetic book which correctly diagnosed the coming of the current world breakdown crisis based on derivatives, above all, hedge funds, industrial decline, immiseration, and a series of also psychological, political factors, the age of oligarchy and indeed of elitism. So that's all at tarpley.net. Take a look at tarpley.net, and that will be, again, expanding over the days and weeks ahead. Just now, Obama is expected to make his decision on escalation between the Afghan election on November 7th and Obama's departure for a tour of Asia, including a summit with the Chinese leaders in Beijing. He's leaving for that on November 11th, Armistice Day, Veterans Day, a day full of sad memories of useless wars in the past, starting with World War I, that other hypocrite, elitist, snob, racist professor, Woodrow Wilson, who got the U.S. into World War I and got, of course, a Nobel Peace Prize, just like Obama. So sometime between November 7th and November 11th, we're going to have a decision, and based on what I can see, it's going to be escalation. Now, will it be 40,000, 60,000, 80,000? Will it be some hypocritical thing where he says 20,000 and he means 40,000? That's also possible with Obama. He is slippery and slimy and evasive and impossible to pin down, talking out of all four sides of his mouth. There is an interesting response from Cindy Sheehan to this maudlin and hypocritical performance, this macabre stunt that Obama pulled by flying to Dover Air Force Base for the arrival of these coffins after midnight. That's the spirit we need in the peace movement, and indeed, it seems to me, and I would put this to peace movement leaders, if any are still in the land of the living, if Obama decides escalation between November 7th and November 11th, you, peace movement leaders, if that's what you are, should come up with a significant mass demonstration in Washington, D.C., to be held on a Saturday sometime in November, December. The cold snap is over here in Washington. It's still fairly warm. It's in the 50s to 60s in the daytime, and that continues for a while. So there's time still before winter sets in to have a mass protest. We're looking for signs of life from the peace movement. So peaceniks, if you're there, do something, earn your pay. Let's see some protests on this and stop rolling over for Butcher Barkey, right? Obama, the current warmonger in chief. Now, the other aspect of this is Iran. There has been this proposal that Iran would transfer a significant part, the majority of its fissile material, its low-grade enriched uranium, suitable for reactors, not suitable for bombs, that this would be originally was going to be transferred to Russia and to France. Of course, France under Sarkozy, a warmonger power, a continental dagger for the Anglo-Americans, all the worst traditions of Napoleon III, for example, the guy who wanted to make France into the continental stooge of the British, or indeed Clemenceau and Poincaré, same story with those guys. 2 million French dead in World War I, resulting from those foolish policies of going with the British against Germany with no concept of national interest. All of that going on. So it's time now to learn the lessons of the past. It's time also to realize that Afghanistan is the graveyard of empires. It's time to end this. So it's also important for NATO countries, hang tough. Don't send any more troops into this Afghan meat grinder, because this war is lost to a greater degree than the Iraq war ever was. Therefore, the Iranians say they don't consider France to be a suitable partner. They kept the door open for Russia somewhat longer, but now it looks like the Iranians are saying no, they don't want any such uranium enrichment deal. This may be something clever by Ahmadinejad. He floated this thing of the transfer of fissile material as a trial balloon, and he forced the CIA coup faction to come out saying, no, don't do that. This is Mousavi, the Mousavi, Khatami, Rafsanjani CIA Green faction, the death to Russia, death to China faction, comes out saying, no, we don't want that low-grade enriched uranium sent overseas. So in that sense, Ahmadinejad has outfoxed his domestic CIA-backed people power coup opposition, who are seemingly now fading into obscurity. We haven't heard much from them for quite a few weeks. So who knows what that leads to. Obviously, the U.S., unfortunately, with Madame Clinton leading the charge, is pushing for an escalation of economic sanctions. Remember, though, this is the Dennis Ross hybrid policy where you're attempting to turn Iran against Russia and China as your puppet. At the same time, you're threatening them. So it's carrot and stick, or maybe garret and stick. This, therefore, amounts to a large part of the strategic pattern now. Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran. It reaches further. It reaches into southern Russia, right? The Washington Post reports that in what amounts to terrorist activity in southern Russia, in the North Caucasus, 519 dead between May and September, and a lot of this is Islamist opposition fomented by the U.S. and the British using operations that they've set up in Pakistan and in Afghanistan. They recruit militants and send them in. Chechnya, of course, clear example. But there are also signs that the U.S. Operation is cracking apart. We have the Foreign Service officer, Matthew Ho, former Marine. He was a Marine Corps captain, now working for the Foreign Service. He quit some weeks ago. This has now become known. He didn't go public right away, but various TV broadcasts and press reports now. He says that the purpose, that the reality of what's going on in Afghanistan is not that it's Al-Qaeda and people who are terrorists, as he sees it, but it's Taliban and others, and just people who don't like foreign occupation. It is a national resistance. In other words, when loudmouth, arrogant foreigners come into a country and start ordering people around, an armed resistance often or usually results. And he says that's what's going on here in Afghanistan. And we've got continuing reports in the London Times, now paying the most attention to this, that the U.S. morale, the U.S. Army morale, Marine Corps morale in Afghanistan is as low and as wretched and as abysmal as can be. Maybe mutiny is on the model of France 1917. Quite possible. We'll be back in a minute on World Crisis Radio.